Just need one more. Chair.
I'm expecting David and Holly at a minimum.
There's Holly.
I'm sorry, Jessica, do we have a quorum?
Hello, and we've got
Yes, we do.
Commissioner Gonzalez and Commissioner
Hi, Lohinos.
Geithner. I want to say Roberto. I was just talking to Cammy. We're both here.
Just don't call her Commissioner Waller.
We will not do that. Let's go ahead then, and since we have a quorum, call the meeting to order. I will say that City Council member Williams will not be in attendance. He is excused. He told me he would be excused. We don't have an alternate because I didn't think we needed an alternate today. So with that, why don't we go ahead and call the attendance?
Okay, I can go ahead and list off who I have seen join us, and then we'll go from there. So 1 moment. Hold those up. In attendance today, I can see we have Holly, Director Gonzalez, Director Geithner, Director Graham, Chair Geislinger, Director Avila, Director Newberry, Director Carpenter, and then staff of member governments and PPACG. Is there any board members that I missed that are with us? All right, with that, just make sure to state your name when making your motion, and I give it back to you.
All right, we will move to item 2, which is approval of the agenda. Following our meeting just now, I am going to make a motion that item 8D, the City of Colorado Springs Infra Grant application for South Academy, be changed from an information only item to an approval item. Can I get a second on my motion?
Second, this is Commissioner Williams.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Is there any opposition? Hearing none, the change to the agenda has been made. So now with that change to the agenda, can I get a motion for approval of the agenda as modified?
I move approval as modified. John Graham.
Holly Williams, second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, item 2 is approved. Item 3, public comment period for items not on the agenda. Do we have any members of the public who want to talk about anything that is not on the agenda today? Hearing none, I will close. Did I just hear somebody? I guess not. Hearing none, I will close public comment and move to item 4, approval of the minutes from February 10, 2021 special meeting. Everybody, I assume, has had an opportunity to review the minutes. Does anybody I'll entertain a motion. Anybody want to approve the minutes?
Commissioner Williams, I move approval of the minutes.
Second
Second.
from Commissioner or Board Member Graham. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we move to it is approved, and we move to item 5, the Citizen Advisory Committee report. And I understand that Reb Williams will be the presenter today. Is that correct? Reb?
If Reb's having audio problems, I can give it. I'm here.
I think you can. Why don't you go ahead and do it, Rick? And Reb, if you get in, just shove Rick aside.
This is Jim. Can you hear? Can everybody hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you, Jim. Don't shove Jim aside, Reb.
Yeah. So for the agenda, we looked at the capital and maintenance public transportation contracts for the city of Colorado Springs. They had 8 of them, and we had good discussion and on all of them, and recommend approval on all of the city's requests. Just a point of clarification, I have not seen the revised list that you'll see today, but item number 8 is actually, is listed in our deal as an emergency bridge fund. It is actually Cascade over Cheyenne Run Bridge. So we clarified everything, and we recommend approval of the city's request. We did receive a briefing from the city on the PPRTA revenue estimate. And you'll receive that today. After some discussion with that, we did make a recommendation to approve that, but we were going to hold all 3 of those or 4 of those options that they presented. I think, and Gail will say this, they'll save it and they'll hold it into 2022.
Send the wrong link. I'll send you the
So anyway, so good discussion there. And then we had an information on the Circle Bridges, kind of an update, but they nobody was there. They were having some audio problems, so we didn't get that. So we'll hear that today for the day. And then the Infra grant, that was new at our meeting, so we'll be hearing that for the first time as well. Transit gave a monthly report, and there was considerable discussion on the bus route to the new Amazon facility, and discussion about the air exclusion zone that was approved several years ago for some of the areas in the airport, and whether or not the Amazon was building in that zone, and whether the route that the transit is proposing to them was actually in an area that was not receiving RTA tax money. And I think we clarified that facility in this route is within the RT area, not within the exclusion zone, I think was the outcome of that. But good discussion on that, and Brian did a great job of talking about the upcoming services and changes. And the other item of interest, just to the kind of to the CAC, I mentioned last time, we do have a public outreach subcommittee, and I appointed Rick Hoover, Reb Williams, Tony Joya, to that subcommittee. One of the things that they do is review the annual report to the citizens. They look at changes and modifications to the website, outward facing, and look at that kind of thing. So I appreciate those members of the committee stepping up and taking on that additional responsibility. So, but I think that was about it from the CAC report.
Thank you, Mr. Godfrey. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Godfrey? Hearing none, can I get a motion to accept the CAC report?
John Graham, I move acceptance of the CAC report as presented.
Do I hear a second?
Second, Lohinos.
Hi, Lohinos. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, then I say it's accepted. Jim, we are all hoping that you get better very soon. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, I'm trying to pull up my copy of the agenda and I'm having difficulty doing it. Thank you so much. 6, Bev, presentation of monthly financial reports.
All right, so as you can see, we received $9,998,000 compared to a budget of $7.4 million. So we were ahead of the monthly budget by almost 2.6 million or 34.5%. And if this continues, we probably at the mid-year budget amendment should increase our sales and use tax estimate and allocate the additional revenue. And then on page 2, page 2, we were ahead of last year, January, by 1.5 million or 17.9%. So we just keep doing better and better. Are there any questions?
Does anybody have questions for Bev?
Yeah,
Hearing
this is-
none. Oh, John, go ahead.
All right, yeah, this is John Graham, Manitou, and this is, I'm afraid I'm going to endorse my ignorance here, but Bev, what I'm wondering is if when we get to the mid-year reconsideration phase, July or June, July, is it, I guess, is it appropriate to reallocate funds and more specifically, I guess I'd be looking for, I'd be requesting assistance to for Manitou Springs for our shuttle bus program. I don't know if this is the appropriate time to ask it. I could get direction offline if you'd like.
Oh, well, at the mid-year budget amendment, it's an excellent time to make changes like that. Both will probably have additional revenue. And then any other changes that member governments want to make to projects and other capital maintenance and so on. It's an excellent time.
Great, thank you. That's what I needed to know. Appreciate it.
Any other questions, comments for Bev? Hearing none, we then go to the Colorado Springs Capital and Maintenance Projects. Mr. Chavez, are you in?
Yes, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Good afternoon, board. This is Mike Chavez, City Engineering. I've got a list of projects to go over real quick. So the first one is a roadway and safety traffic project to make some improvements to the roundabout at Lake Drive and Old Broadmoor. That's the first one from Nevada that has had some safety issues. So basically what we're doing there is putting a better truck apron and also adding some walls for a better target value. And that what that means is you have more vertical elevation so that you can see that there's a roundabout coming up ahead. It's got a history of people kind of going through it. And so these are some safety improvements basically that traffic's doing on that project. No questions there. The next,
I'll just ask if anybody has questions, Mike, you generally, I think you do a good job of stopping at the end. I'm not going to ask if there's any questions or concerns, just interrupt at that point when he gets done with the particular project.
okay. Next one is the coming out of our maintenance funds. That's for the capital maintenance of capital projects. So that's landscaping and some repairs and watering for some of the larger RTA projects that we have. This is an ongoing maintenance contract that we have. We just renewed it this year with 4 option renewal years, and that's for $350,000 this year. Any questions on that one? Okay. Next one is our pedestrian and school and neighborhood pedestrian improvements. So basically what we call our missing sidewalk project, and we are just exercising, I believe it's the second year option on the contract with Even Pricer, and they go around and put in missing segments of sidewalk throughout the city. They're kind of working on quadrants basis, and I believe the memo says it was quadrant. I'm not sure there, but basically they're just kind of a continuation of this annual program. So, is there any questions on that one? Next one is a design contract for HDR to do the final design on the two bridges over Fontanero next to I-25, the railroad bridges. This is an ongoing project. We had them do preliminary design. This will get us final design for both bridges, and that contract's for a little bit over $1.1 million. This one is scheduled to go to construction in the latter years of the program, 23 and 24. Okay, next one. There are 3 on-call contracts for milling and overlay for street or operations and maintenance division. They are just in place. They really don't have any dollar values assigned to them at this point. They just want them in place in case they do need to make use of these contracts and these contractors. And then the last one is the Cascade or Cheyenne Run Bridge that was recently completed. That one was mostly funded with general fund dollars, but we did have some emergency bridge RTA funds in there, and there was leftover general fund money, so we are using up all of that and returning $85,000 to the bridge program. So, are there any questions on any of these?
Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the Colorado Springs monthly report. I heard somebody say something.
Commissioner Williams, so moved.
Okay. Can I hear a second?
John Graham, second.
All right, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It is approved. Thank you, Mr. Chavez.
Thank you.
Ms. Irvin, are you there for the El Paso County report?
The county doesn't have any contracts this month.
Okay, then I will look to see what we are at next is
Transit.
all right, we will take the Transit Authority. It looks like Miss McCauley is here. Is that right?
Actually, the Craig Blewett is here.
Oh, hi, Craig.
Hi.
Okay, it's nice to see you.
Likewise, good to see you. Good afternoon, board members. I'm Craig Blewett, Transit Services Manager with the City of Colorado Springs. Our monthly report is in your packet, and I'd just like to hit on a few of the highlights. Local fixed route bus system for January ridership is still down about 50%, about half compared to a year ago. And as I've noted before, this level of ridership is working well for us, as per a state directive, we are not allowed to be more than half full seating wise on our buses. So this current ridership is actually working out quite well. 2 other things to note on fixed route. Our contractors drivers and the number of reporting drivers has fully recovered from the COVID cases that they had. That the impact of that outbreak was drawn out and lasting because it impacted our driver training program as well in terms of bringing new drivers on. But I'm very happy to say that we have sustained a high level of reporting drivers, and we've resumed all bus route services currently except for routes 38 and 40. So Route 40 goes to Pikes Peak Community College. Route 38 goes to the Northern Hospitals, and both of them have asked to not continue service for the time being. Pikes Peak Community College at this point does expect to have mostly in-person classes in the fall semester, so it's our plan to strive to resume that service in August. ADA paratransit, Metro Mobility, ridership continues to be down about 60%. And a large amount of that is due to the closure and restrictions at group day programs like Goodwill. Almost half of our Metro Mobility customers go to those programs. And if the programs are not open, the folks don't travel. Our van pool program continues to be heavily impacted by the pandemic. In January, we had 40 active riders, daily riders, in just 7 vans. So 5 to 6 people per van. So limited number of vans going up to Denver, but we'll see what happens once the pandemic subsides. Probably the big thing to talk about is our spring service changes, and that was alluded to in your CAC report. We did complete the public input process for the service changes. The service changes proposed, as noted in the report, are the addition of a new express bus service to the new Amazon facility in the airport that was mentioned. Also, the extension of the downtown Manitou shuttle, Route 36, farther west to the second roundabout. It currently goes to the first roundabout at Ruxton, go to that second roundabout at Serpentine. And the third change was a reduction in service on the Manitou Incline shuttle, Route 33, proposed to eliminate late night service after 6 p.m. during the off season, and a reduction of frequency of that shuttle on weekends during the peak season. We did get public comments on all those, and our way we're going to proceed is to do with those changes, with the exception of we will save the reduction of frequency on Route 30 on Route 33. Our proposal is to use some of the PPRTA money from the mid-year budget amendment to pay for that extra bus that allows that 10-minute frequency on the Manitou Incline shuttle on the weekends. So that's all I have, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board would have.
Are there any questions for Mr. Blewett?
I have a comment. This is John Graham from Manitou Springs, and I'd like to thank Mr. Blewett for the Mountain Metro picking up the second bus during the high season. He had mentioned that by Mountain Metro providing a second bus service on weekends, we'll be able to maintain a 10-minute frequency between our Hiawatha Gardens parking area and the incline area. As a Manitou resident, with the exception of last year with COVID, I mean, that bus has been standing room only for a number of years. I mean, every 10 minutes is essential. So we very much appreciate the cooperation that we've received from Mountain Metro. And I guess with that, I would say we really felt that we need to make this cutback for monetary reasons. We're trying to catch up on some of our other parking and transportation situations. So again, thank you.
Absolutely, and thank you, Mayor.
Are there any other questions, comments? Craig, I do have one. I'm asking you to pull out your crystal ball, which of course may be murky or absolutely clear. Do we have any sense, given where we are at right now with the current infection rate, the current trends, when we might be open to have, or any expectation in the community about when we might be open in Colorado to having, to allow higher ridership?
Well, that's a great question. And I know, so we belong to CASTA, which is the Colorado Association of Transit Agencies. In fact, I'm on the board of directors. CASTA is working with state health department and environment on when that can be I guess, relieved a little bit in terms of the restrictions. And so working closely, but no information at this time.
All
I
right.
think, I believe the governor is going to speak today, I think, with some of the advancements that are making with vaccinations across the state. And I think it's recognized that as more and more people get vaccinated, we'll be able to loosen some of those restrictions.
Are you okay to be able to respond with increased, if there's an increased demand that flows because of increased ridership, are we in a position to be able to meet that demand?
Well, great question. Well, first of all, we really have not cut our service back, unlike a lot of transit agencies across the country. And one of the reasons with CARES Act funding that we've gotten, and of course PPRTA revenue has done pretty well, which thankfully. So we have not cut back service with the exception of those buses to the northern hospitals and the Pikes Peak Community College North. So that's the good thing. I think with the PPRTA budget amendment, we are hoping to be able to still add some services. And we're going to be careful to add those services where the demand is and further being able to meet that demand.
Thank you. All right. Thanks, Craig. Any other questions or concerns? Hearing none, thanks, Craig. Have a good rest of your day. I think we are now to item 8B, which is the Colorado Springs revenue update. Is it, Gail, is this you, or is this Mike, or is this somebody else?
It'll be Gail.
Okay.
She got on.
I am on now.
Okay.
Yeah,
Hi, Gail.
I was having problems with the link earlier, so I apologize for that. So I did a modification to the presentation I gave you last month on the projected revenue, and it's included in your packet. And this presentation was given to the CAC last week. And the big thing that was different about it, I think it was Councilman Williams recommended that we take a look at another scenario, and we added a fourth scenario, and it's on pages 38 and 39 of your packet. So it's in the presentation itself. And I think that really it has been recommended to take a look at what we had at the actual 2020 revenue, and then to basically subtract anywhere from $5 to $10 million based on what we thought the carryover from internet sales would be. There was also a request that Bev kind of give us more of a history on what's been happening with our revenue over the 16 years that's happened in PPRTA, and that is included in your packet as well. And essentially, when we went and looked at that data, when we created this fourth scenario, we really decided it would make maybe more sense to look at the 19 numbers and start with a base projection there. So we took the 2019 actuals and applied a 1% growth and took that total from 2025 to 2034, and that would result in a planned revenue amount of $1.242 billion. And if we could go to the next slide, please, whoever's controlling, I think it's Jessica. I wanted you to see that summary. So we had talked about the first scenario last time where it was flat, where it's really with little to no growth, or no growth from our base year projections. And then looked at the second one with those 1% growth increase. And then the third one was using the 2020 budgeted number and using 1% growth. But if you go and look at the 19 actual revenue and add that 1% growth, that would give you again that $1.242 billion in revenue. And that's $184.8 million over that first scenario. So I think that neither the CAC nor the board was super excited about that first scenario, which it's completely understandable. Staff's recommendation would still be to carry forward those three scenarios until mid-2020 as we start looking at the project list and going and for consideration. But I think we're really narrowing in on more of a realistic planning number. And again, remember, that's just for planning purposes. We're still going to want to look at some other thresholds for project planning that we discussed last time as we start looking at the list. And it just gives us some opportunity flexibility. And then I also wanted to mention, as each year comes up through the new RTA authorization, you're still going to be going through that budget process and be able to make adjustments through there, but this is really what we'd like to propose to use as for planning numbers as we move forward to start evaluating the project lists in the near future. And I
Any
believe
questions for Mr. Levant? Gail, I think that this is a really, really good foundational, presentation. One thing that I have, and I don't know, I've talked to Sheree about this on the city side, so I'll talk to you about it on the transportation PPRTA side. This is such an unusual year because one of the things that we don't know is how much of the receipts may be artificially deflated because of consumer sentiment or artificially inflated because of the federal government's massive infusion of cash. And both of those things are going to change. So I don't know if that's something that we can incorporate into these numbers, or is that just too granular at this point?
so. We looked a lot in those first two scenarios. The reason why we kind of had that adjustment to that base year, if you recall from the presentation last month, there was that total, and then there was that 78% reduction. And some of it was really meant to respond to some of that unknown volatility in the economy, whether it be, and we were really focused on a part of that for an economic downturn and those kinds of things. So I think all these numbers are actually conservative, and they all have some good thought and philosophies behind them. But you're right. I mean, we just need to be prepared to be responsive, and that's one of the other reasons when we start looking at the project lists, is not trying to max out what even this planning number, that we look at some other threshold to distinguish between that A and B list. So if there is a more significant economic downturn, that we're not stuck in a position where we can't complete A-list projects. I think, and I know Bev and I talked actually after the CAC last week, there is so much cash. There's going to be so much cash still provided by the federal government through the American Recovery Act that just passed, that I think that we're still going to see some inflation. I shouldn't say inflation, some higher receipts than we would expect anywhere from the next 1 to 3 years, until we really can kind of see things really catch up and more normalize. But as we can look at crystal balls, I mean, that's really what our indications are. I hope I answered your question there. And Bev,
No, you did. And then this is frankly more of a philosophical question for Mike and maybe Travis to have with me going forward is, sorry, I'm getting phones all over the place here, is to address what constitutes a transportation project for A-list purposes going forward. Is it going to be just roads? Do we want to talk about other potential things? I do know that the state rail commission is making lots of estimates like this are at the moment. Yeah, okay, yes. I agree with you, Jim. But addressing, for instance, the state plan for a rail system from Pueblo up to the Wyoming border. Should PPRTA be a project that addresses that as well? And how does that get incorporated into an A-list item? So just sort of those discussions going forward.
And that's one of the things you'll hear a lot of that talked about when we were able to bring back all the staff's recommendations on that PPRTA 3 matrix. The one I think we'll address all those except for maybe specifically the front range passenger rail. And I have to tell you, I think that might be premature for us to actually consider in any fashion right now as an A-list today. One, because we don't know the timing, we don't know how that's going to be funded. There's so many things floating around about it. And then also if they set it up as an enterprise, with their last election, that if the enterprise is going to be over $100 million, it's going to have to go back to the electorate anyway from a statewide perspective. And then we could reconsider how it may or may not impact PPRTA. So I think the Front Range Passing Rail is a much bigger, larger discussion that we're going to want to have once we get more framework around that project. But I think the rest of your questions would be answered, Dave.
And that's just more of a PPRTA 3 question. So thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Sturdivant on this item? Then we move to 8C, I believe, Circle Drive. Is that you, Mike?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Okay, so the Circle Bridge replacement project was kind of scheduled to be finalized, and we're going to go to advertisement about this time, March, April, get construction going on, board about the contract on board, and construction started, you know, May, June. We basically what we have is one of the bridges over the railroad currently has 2 piers within the railroad right of way straddling the tracks. Our proposed design still had the piers in the right of way, but we moved them further away from the tracks. And at the 60% level, the railroad gave us the preliminary approval of that plan. When we submitted 90% plans, they came back specifically, I believe it was the UP, and said, we want you to move those piers out of the right of way. And that request is pretty substantial. What we have done is we've come with a plan where one pier is out of the right of way, the other one we moved a little bit further. We had a meeting with the railroad last week presenting this new option, and it went well. It was received favorably. Unfortunately, on the UP side, the final decision maker, or one or two of them, were not able to be in the meeting. So the UP rep that was on it is going back and trying to get an answer from these people. We're hoping to hear this week. If they're good with our plan as is, then we still have some redesign to do. We're thinking it'd probably be about a 3-month delay getting the project to bid, and the design cost, this redesign could be about $200,000. So we will actually know more in a week or so, but we're hoping that they will approve our latest modification, and that will get us being able to start this project in construction by the end of summer. If they don't, that's a more serious effect on schedule, but we will continue to let you know where we stand with this project. So we just want to kind of give an update of what's happening and what we kind of are working towards. Are there any questions on that?
Any questions for Mr. Chavez on this update? Hearing none, it is informational only. Thank you, Michael. We now move to item 8D, the Academy Infra Grant. And I believe, Gail, this is you again.
This is, yes. So we just wanted to make sure we had the opportunity to inform the PPRTA board that the city is pursuing an Infra grant, which stands for the Infrastructure for Rebuilding America grant. It's discretionary federal funding to help with the construction cost for the South Academy reconstruction, the piece that runs from Fountain Boulevard to Milton Proby Parkway. As you're aware, that is an A-list project, and currently that project is scheduled to go to bid at the end of 2021. But this is an opportunity to get some additional funding and an opportunity to provide some additional enhancements on that corridor. So we're going to be pursuing a grant that the range, we actually think we're going to be close to that $23 million range to help with the construction costs for that project. And we have to submit that grant next Friday, so I apologize for the short notice on that, but we were given a very short time to respond to this particular grant. And why we put this application in, I wanted to let you know that we're going to leave the project on the current schedule as is. Again, targeting for December of 21 bid timeframe. But if we get the grant, we should hear in June or July that we would have to take a step back and reevaluate the schedule on the project. And it could end up creating anywhere from a 6 to 18 month construction start delay, but it would be infusing a lot more money into the project and ultimately would result in some savings to the PPRTA program. It's not a direct $1-for-$1 savings. I just want to make sure that that's clear, but it does help because it helps cover some of Colorado Springs utilities costs as well. But it's a great opportunity to get some additional funding. It does not impact the city's Tabor. It doesn't impact other PPACG grants that are out there. It doesn't have an impact on other stimulus money. It's just really an opportunity for us to have some additional savings and cash going into the region. And we would be, in addition to informing you, I also wanted to ask the PPRTA board for a letter of support for the city pursuing this grant.
Is there any question from anybody about the application for the Infra grant? Hearing none, can I get a motion to approve the request to have a letter issued supporting the grant application?
Commissioner Williams, so approved or so moved.
Graham, second.
Before we vote, Mr. Godfrey asked a question to Gail, and maybe Mike, you may need to respond to this. Would this delay completing the A list?
It would delay the start of this project. We would still be able to complete the A list, but what you would end up seeing is that it would likely be trickling into 24, 25 for final completion, depending on when we could start.
And we would still be 100% funded for our A list projects, though.
Yes, you would. And in fact, you would have hopefully 14 million extra dollars to use to complete the A list.
Okay. I have a note in the chat that Jim says that that's okay. So I assume we answered the question. With that additional information and a motion in a second, all in favor of approving this, noting, I would say that this is kind of the flexibility that we want to build into PPRTA 3. All in favor of signing the letter approving the request for this grant, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it is approved. Thank you, Gail.
Thank you.
Mike, we are now to 8E, the monthly change report.
Yes, this is an informational item. Are there any questions on this list?
Anybody have any questions for Mike on the monthly change report that's in our packet? Hearing none, thank you, Mike. Have a good rest of your day.
All right,
We
thank
move
you.
to item 8F, which is the quarterly report. Rick, I believe that's you, correct?
Yes, sir. The quarterly reports are submitted via the comprehensive IGA 50 days after the end of each calendar quarter. So the 5 reports that you have are for the 4th calendar quarter of 2020. Be glad to take any questions. And then if there are not any questions, I have a follow-up on another item while I have the floor. So are there any questions on this report? Okay, then I'd like to offer an update on the Calhan situation. You'll remember the board received a timetable for calendar 21 from Board Attorney Jennifer Ivey, and the first step that had to be completed by June was for the Board of Trustees of the town of Calhan to approve a resolution indicating that they did want to join the PPRTA. The Calhan Board of Trustees did do that. They passed a resolution Monday night of this week. So that's the first step. So we plan to put this on the CAC and board agenda for the April cycle to get board review and approval of the Calhan resolution, and then refer out to the 5 member governments a request for their thumbs up for Calhan to join. So just a heads up that this occurred Monday of this week and that'll be on your agenda for April.
Does anybody have any special or specific comments or questions for Rick? I am going to follow up a little bit on that Calhoun question. Assuming that we approve proceeding in April, that will be the official request from our attorney to the member governments to talk about the IGA, board representation, and the like. I do think that it would be a good idea for all of us to at least start talking to the folks in the know at our respective jurisdictions to let them know that this is going to be something that's coming, so that they can at least start to think about it now rather than later. Any other comments, questions on the Calhoun application? Then we will move on to item 9, the legislative report. Dan Shaban, I think you are somewhere in this Ethernet, aren't you?
I am here. Just kind of a real quick general update. We're now into day 23, I believe, of the 120-day block. They do all 120 days, as we discussed. They'll send us to mid-June. They still are teasing us by saying they want to get out by Memorial Day, but we'll see how that is. 120 bills dropped on Friday, bringing us close to 400 overall already. So I think the Memorial Day is a pipe dream, but it would certainly make my wife happy because I could go on my June vacation. But I think that may not happen. The big ticket items are starting to hit. There was about an 8-hour debate on the floor on a gun bill. Judiciary had a 7-hour committee meeting last week. Oil and gas is being hit. The public option for health insurance is coming this week, as far as some other big bills. So the heavy hitting stuff is starting to come. Right now, we still, as Rick and I go through the bills, are in pretty good shape moving forward, but I would expect to see some transportation funding bills coming in the near future as the playing nice times between the caucuses is well past. So we'll see what the next couple of weeks bring us at Pikes Peak. But I expect from the remaining of the session to be quite contentious forward. And I guess the good news is, I think everybody probably saw the front page of the Denver Post yesterday or on Sunday that they project the budget will have more money than the state has bills. So, I mean, I think that's a pretty good thing. And I did talk to one of the ranking members on the JBC, and he seemed very relaxed yesterday as I talked to him. So they're just sort of waiting for some new forecasts to come out.
Any questions for Dan? Hearing none, get back to work. That sounds like a lot of bills to cover.
I think I'm tracking 113 bills right now.
Oh my gosh. All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye. Moving to item 10, member updates and announcements. Does anybody have any updates or announcements that they'd like to share with the rest of the board?
Yeah, Dave, can you hear me?
I can, Rob. Go ahead.
I thank you. I hope everybody understands I had a little trouble getting back on. I had the meeting at 1 to 1:30 and I waited for 10 minutes just to get through, and then I got to Rick. Regardless, I'm on. I apologize for not being available, standing in for Jim, so I'm truly sorry. And because I wasn't there, I'd like to say thank you to Gail for what she gave us, although we didn't have it in print or anything like that. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Jim did a really good job, and you did a really good job at the planning meeting, so that you guys tag teamed well. Any other announcements? Hearing none, we'll move to item 11. Anybody want to make a motion to get out of here in 50 minutes?
So moved.
Second by anybody?
Second, John Graham.
All in favor, say aye.
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 None opposed. Okay, guys, have a great rest of your week.
Thank
You
you.
too.
We are
Thank you
adjourned.
all. Take care.
Bye.